retired military officer and was chief of army staff, in fact. Let me make that complete. The Minister of the Interior, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, he's going to speak on a topic. The topic is emerging security threats in the Sahel region, implications for Nigeria. That is the topic to be addressed by General Dambazzau. I hope General is in the house.
Yes.
Professor.
Yes.
I thought the lead presenter is Professor Isaac Albert.
No. Let's hand over to the president, sir.
Okay.
My apology. I was caught in another.
Yes, I think I even got it wrong. Yeah. Sorry for that.
I apologize for the mix-up. Let me welcome everybody to this session, which is actually a roundtable, which has three different speakers. Professor Isaac Albert, of course, the chairperson of our seminars, roundtable, and dialogues committee, the former chief of army staff and former minister of interior, retired Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Dambazzau, and Professor Cyril Obi of the Social Science Research Council in New York. But we have today as the chairperson, the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Professor Eghosa Osaghae, is online. I've seen it online. And I'll be handing over to him in a moment. But it's a major issue that is before us, not just as a country, but as a region. And I'm sure that our speakers today will do great justice to the subject. Professor Albert, I'm sorry that I got on a couple of minutes behind time. And Professor Duole, thanks so much for the tip-off. Let me hand over to Professor Eghosa Osaghae, who is chairing today's session. I've seen Eghosa online. It's just my pleasure to invite. Eghosa doesn't need introduction. He's a professor of political science and is current Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. And I'm sure that we'll find him a very exciting chairperson. Professor Osaghae, the floor is yours. Thank you.
But may I just please allow me to apologize to the house. You know, I wasn't familiar with it, and I was already misleading the house. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's okay, sir.
Thank you for rescuing me.
That's what that's for standing coming in when there was a
yes. Let me begin by thanking the president of the academy, and let me say that Professor Sogolo didn't jump any gun. He has succeeded in resolving what would have been a conflict in the Sahel. So there's no problem. Thank you very much. Let me welcome everyone on behalf of the president and the members, the fellows of the Nigerian Academy of Letters, and all distinguished ladies and gentlemen who are with us today, Your Excellencies. Today we have three speakers. They have been introduced. We have Lieutenant General Abdulrahman B, Dambazzau, CFR, the former Chief of Army Staff in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He was Chief of Army Staff 2008, 2010, and he served as the Minister of Interior between 2015 and 2019. Now, the interior, of course, the domestic face of the exterior. So when we look from within to the exterior, we see the Sahel. And I think that the choice of General Abdulrahman, who is himself a distinguished social scientist and a professor, is very eminently deserved. We have Professor Wale Albert, who is a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Letters. He's of the Department of Peace, Security, and Humanitarian Studies of the University of Ibadan. He was Foundation Dean of the University of Ibadan's Faculty of Multidisciplinary Studies. He's the father of the famous Society for Peace in Nigeria, which has gone international. He also helped to establish the Peace and Conflict Studies program in the University of Ilorin. And last but not the least, certainly not the least, is Professor Cyril Obi. Cyril Obi, a distinguished fellow of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, the NIA, who's currently Program Director of Social Science Research Council in New York, had also served as the head of research at the Nordiska, the Scandinavian African Studies Institute in Uppsala, in Sweden. So we have these three distinguished panelists today to make all of us sit well and properly follow the issues in emerging security threats in the Sahel. Of course, we all know what the Sahel is. Just
Professor Osaghae, can you please unmute yourself?
You mute yourself, Professor Osaghae.
Did I get muted? Can you hear me
yes.
now?
Yes, but you can hear you now.
Thank you. Thank God you can hear me. So I was saying, I'm sure you heard when I introduced the three panelists.
We did.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. So may I then, on your behalf, invite our very first panelist, Professor Wale Albert of the Department of Peace, Security and Humanitarian Studies, University of Ibadan. So that we all have a good time doing this, we'll allot 15 minutes to each panelist. Please, 15 minutes, very strict 15 minutes. Professor Albert, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Osaghae. And I think I will start this presentation by thanking my colleagues in the seminars and roundtable committee, because when we took off as a committee, we all agreed on the kind of papers that will be taken this year, and we agreed that this matter of security in the Sahel should be given attention. And as Professor Osaghae said, it's a very, very timely intervention, because in recent months, meetings are being held all over the world. Let me not just say Africa, about the security situations alarming security situations in the Sahel. Now, the Sahel is a stretch of land from Mauritania to Djibouti. Northern parts of Nigeria is part of that security corridor. But what the Sahel is known for today is terrorism, because most terrorist organizations across the world have their bases, African bases in the Sahel, Islamic states in the West African provinces, Islamic states in Greater Sahara, and then you also have Al-Qaeda groups also operating in that along that corridor. Now, what we are trying to do today is to take a critical look at the extent to which the problems in the Sahel are affecting Nigeria. We're interested in this because Nigeria is one of the most impacted countries in the Sahel, and our president is also the current chairman of ECOWAS. And therefore, if the problems are not properly managed, one, we would have more problems in Nigeria, as we've started witnessing. The governor of Borno State a few weeks ago actually came to Abuja to beg the president not to allow Borno to fall. And when he used the word fall, I think some of us became frightened. And BBC interviewed me yesterday. And one of the questions they were asking me has to do with the implications of Mali falling, because the situation in Mali is very, very frightening. In the last 5 or 6 months, more than 400 soldiers have been killed by terrorists. And the terrorists in Mali now are so bold that they come directly into Bamako. In the past, they were restricted to the northern parts of Mali. Benin Republic is under pressure. Northern Benin is under pressure. Northern Togo is under pressure. Côte d'Ivoire is facing, increased security threats, and so what I've shown here is just the map of what one would call Western Sahel, because Sahel, goes up to Djibouti. Now, along that corridor, you find too many troublemakers. It's a safe haven for all kinds of terrorists that have been driven away from the Western world, that have been driven away from the Middle East. So they are all operating freely, along that corridor. Now, I am of the opinion that we have more problems because the 3 most impacted states in the Sahel have pulled out of ECOWAS. What? ECOWAS has a conflict management.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, please?
Clearly,
yes,
sir. Clearly.
Albert, go on. We can hear you.
We can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have pulled out of ECOWAS, and therefore the security problems in the Sahel is increased, in the sense that it is now difficult for ECOWAS to use its existing peace and security architecture across the region. So once ECOWAS gets to Senegal and Guinea now, Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria. So the problems in the 3 Sahelian states, I think, has increased the security burden of that corridor. Now, we have more problems. One, Mali has driven away United Nations peacekeepers away from its jurisdictions. France has been expelled from the 3 countries. So those who were actually supporting these countries in the past to deal with the issues of terrorism have been pushed out. So the Russians have come in, the Chinese have come in, the Qataris, the Arabs, different countries are coming in for different reasons. So in other words, more problems are being added to what we already had in the Sahel. Now, the Russians that have moved in and the Chinese that have moved in have security management systems that are totally different from the ones that these countries are used to. So in other words, the Russians, the Chinese are just learning. They are learning, they are carrying out experiments in West Africa. And I think this is why more deaths are being recorded in all the countries, including northern Nigeria. And just 3 days ago, the commander of AFRICOM, that is the African Command of the US, actually said that the terrorists across the Sahel are pushing southwards towards the coastal states of West Africa. Of course, we should not give him credit for that because, you know, I knew that more than 2 years ago, that the agenda of these terrorist groups across the Sahel is to push to the southern parts of the country, which is believed and which indeed is blessed with material resources that they could use to further expand their capacity for evil. And the reason why these terrorists are pushing southwards is they no longer get as much resources from IC, from Al-Qaeda as they did in the past, because all their settlements in the Middle East have been broken down, and therefore they are unable to actually fund terrorism in Africa and West Africa. So what is expected now of these people, of these countries, you know, of the terrorists in these countries, is not only to generate money for their own operations, but also to be able to subsidize their principals in the Middle East. And that is why you see more kidnapping, and you see them charging outrageous rates when they kidnap people. They collect taxes, they collect religious taxes, they collect harvest taxes. They are now harvesting elephant's tusk, warthog tusks. They are mining gold and diamond. So they are now fully a business, you know, they operate now like a business organization, and they are targeting the South. I don't want to take us too deep into the implications of the attack of Owo. When Owo was attacked, you know, the way it was presented to us is totally different from what it is. It was an experiment. It was an experiment to see the extent to which these people can actually take the battle southwards. So in my PowerPoint 5, I listed the number of people that have been killed in Mali recently. And then who is this person? Daily Trust actually published a report on how fast they are moving into different parts of the world. And the Daily Trust report shows that they are not effectively in Kogi State, they are in Kwara State, but one will add that they are also in Benue State. You know, let's forget the way the government interprets some of these problems. Now, the implication for Nigeria is that more foreign fighters are coming into Nigeria. They are coming into Nigeria not to come and pursue any religious objectives, as some of us, you know, often say. This thing has nothing, it has nothing to do with Islam. It has now become a business. So they come in with different types of weapons, and that is actually expanding the crisis in Nigeria. And some of the weapons, you know, come in through Libya. And as I told BBC yesterday, the arms that come in from Libya now, they are no longer Gaddafi's weapons, but they are weapons that are shipped into Libya from different parts of the world, because the ports of Libya now is open and is really used by criminals who want to ship in arms into different parts of Africa. And many of these arms get into Nigeria through Chad, through Niger. And I think that is why we need to mind how we manage Niger. Niger should be protected as part of Nigeria, because Niger helps to prevent as many weapons as possible from coming into Nigeria. Our good relationship with Niger will also help to reduce the number of foreign fighters that are coming into Nigeria. You know, I've been given only 15 minutes. The last point I will make is that Muslims across Nigeria will feel the impact of what we're saying here. Last year, we had scarcity of rams coming into Nigeria, but now lesser number of rams will come into Nigeria because Niger is facing problems with places from where these animals are procured from. And I think I was told 2 days ago that Niger is also trying to ensure that that the country is not emptied of the rams that they also need for celebrating the Muslim festival. I thank you so much. The last point I want to make is that in the last 2 months, I've attended 6 meetings in different parts of Africa on this issue of security problems in the Sahel. And one thing that I noticed is that, you know, our colleagues in the humanities now are speaking the languages of security studies. So people are no longer talking about marginalization of women. They are talking about gender security. You know, you find people in the field of literature actually coming up with narratives that, you know, suggest that more and more scholars across Africa now are coming into the field of security. And I pray that Nigeria too will further build their capacity, strengthen their existing knowledge with ideas from some of these problems that we're discussing here. I thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Professor Albert. I think you have set the tone for this discussion. You have highlighted the points about the internationalization of terrorism and how terrorism has traversed several countries and turned the Sahel into one large pool, meaning that what happens in any one country has implications for what happens in all the others. Thank you very much. It's now the turn of Lieutenant General Bello Dambazzau. Dambazzau was Nigeria's Minister of Interior, and I'm sure he has insights into the kinds of complexities, you know, that Albert has talked about. General Dambazzau, you're welcome to have the floor for 15 minutes, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you very much, President. And I also once more want to appreciate my invitation to participate in this very important dialogue of NAL. And I listened to Professor Albert, who I must say is an expert in this area. And he brought out excellent points that I don't need to repeat them, but I will also refer to them because they are very, very important. The topic has to do itself about the emerging security threats in the Sahel and also the implications to Nigeria. So what are those threats? I think we need also to a little bit expand them and you know, go itemize them so that we'll be able to discuss on them. And I think the Professor Albert has also already mentioned the main threat in the Sahel today is that of insurgency and that of terrorism. These are two concepts that go together. And we know the fact that as it is today, within the Sahel, these three major countries, as he rightly pointed out, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are the most impacted countries in the Sahel. And this is one major reason why they are part of what was formed as G5 Sahel, which was with France behind it. Now G5 Sahel, because of their relationship with France, is kind of dissolved. It no longer exists. So insurgency is important. The issue of insurgency is of great concern, not just to Sahel region, but to ECOWAS sub-region and the Lake Chad Basin region. The reason is this: with the current impasse between the ECOWAS, which was then 15-member ECOWAS, and now reduced to 12, and the alliance of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali has now made ECOWAS coastal states more vulnerable than before. If you remember the triangle of, is it Lipton Buma, as it is called, of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, where these insurgents were concentrated. These three countries were the blockers of that corridor that moves towards, that faces the ECOWAS coastal region. And that corridor faces directly our weakest point, that is Togo and Benin. In this part of ECOWAS, that are the weakest points. And the corridor faces that. And this is why you are finding these insurgents moving across towards Togo and Benin Republic. And also with that, because Nigeria is the strongest point of ECOWAS, or the strongest link of ECOWAS, it has become attractive to insurgents because in strategy, in warfare strategy, now referring specifically to this Chinese strategist who says that you can fight a war without fight, you can win a war without fighting. So the best way to do that is to attack the strongest point, that is, yes, of the enemy. And if you do that, you weaken it. So, and I think Nigeria is being the strongest point in terms of it consists of over 60% of ECOWAS population. It has the strongest economy among ECOWAS member states. It is multi-ethnic and multi-religious. And this also coincides with the fact that these two factors are fault lines that can be exploited by the enemy. And it is attractive by cross-border criminals who engage in arms trafficking, drugs trafficking, human trafficking. And of course, because it is why is it attractive to them? Because we have extensive, long borders with Niger, about 1,400 kilometers, which, you know, is kind of very porous. As it is today, it's very porous, so it's easily penetrated. And with our relationship with Niger, and this is why I also must refer to what Professor Albert observed, that Nigeria needs to manage its relationship with Niger, because this current relationship is being exploited by all kinds of groups, including arms traffickers. As it is today, there are about 40 million firearms in the hands of non-state actors in the Sahel, 40 million. And out of the 40 million, 11 million are within ECOWAS sub-region. So this is scaring. And Professor Albert rightly pointed out from where these weapons are coming. And I want to even say that we also have to prepare, because post-Ukraine-Russia war is also going to, you know, bring a lot of these weapons, because arms merchants look for areas of conflict in order to dump these weapons. And the Sahel and Lake Chad region are these kind of areas they are looking for. And also the fact that they have to be able to sustain their operations through illegal means. One of those means drugs, which also, because our borders are vulnerable, they can easily bring in drugs, both from the coast and also from the Sahel. So they can easily bring these drugs, trade with them, and buy weapons. Of course, the other area that can be attractive for them because of illegal mining. These are areas also that they can mine, for instance, gold in Zamfara and elsewhere, to be able to make money and buy arms. So these are areas. Also, Nigeria possesses or has large, extensive swaths of forest and land that are ungoverned. And this also is attractive. So because it provides a safe haven kind of for these groups. So I also think that we should be very mindful of the fact that once these insurgents, we're talking of the impact or the implications to Nigeria, once these groups manage to penetrate into Benin Republic, especially, I want to guarantee you that the whole of our western border from Sokoto to Badagry will be vulnerable to attacks. So it is necessary for us to put that at the back of our minds, because like Professor Albert rightly pointed out, the major end state for these groups is to be able to penetrate all the coastal states, ECOWAS coastal states, at the end of the day. And then I think if they take the strongest point, which is Nigeria, and also through the weakest link, they will get Nigeria, they will get Ghana. It's not that easy, but it is a possibility. But if we don't get our acts together, particularly of the fact now that the multinational joint task force is weakened by the fact that Niger has pulled out of Sector 1, where it protects, and Chad has pulled out of Sector 3. So those sectors, no, I think Sector 4 also, those sectors are vulnerable, and this is why one of the reasons why we're having a lot of activities along the Northeast, particularly in Borno, because of that pull out, and those sectors are vulnerable. So these are some of the issues I think that we're looking at. The other issue is foreign interest. Yeah, foreign interest. France has pulled out of some of these countries, the alliance countries. The US too is no longer active there. The EU is no longer active there. Russia and China are now there, as Professor Albert has made mention. But he also put a rider there that they are learning, Russia and China are learning the security environment. I don't think they are learning the security environment. They've known it for a long time. They've been having interest there quietly. So it's not issue of learning. And also, even France and US were not there to protect the interests of the region as such, to protect their own interests. And this is a lesson we must learn in articulating our strategy, that no country or no group can protect your interests better than yourself. And this is, unfortunately, we've gotten to a point that ECOWAS is very weak, and it's not in a position to do that. The other issue which I think we must look at is issue of democracy and leadership deficit. The area ECOWAS has this problem. Of course, we have problem of these countries that are now under military dictatorship, but also have countries that are under civilian dictatorship. Democracy is not working within this our region. And that will impact on whatever enemies of the region will do. They will take advantage of that. Where I give this example, I said, mosquito breeds in an environment that is dirty, where water is stagnant, doesn't move, and so on and so forth. Likewise, terrorism insurgency breeds in areas, environment, where the socioeconomic issues are strangulating people, extreme poverty, high unemployment, food insecurity, and so on and so forth. So with this is insurgents recruit in mass. If you listen to this group, you mentioned Mahmouda in Niger. I listened to the guy who was threatening some of the communities. This is what he said. He said, we came here as friends. We came here to protect you. We have been providing you what your government is not providing you. We provide you water, sank boreholes for you, repaired your schools, brought a solar system for you, and so on and so forth. Now you are betraying us. We will deal with you. So you see, these are some of the things I think. So there is issue of leadership deficit, which also makes it possible for some of these people to get into. I've been given 15 minutes. I think I will stop here so that we give opportunity for further discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, General Dambazzau. Thank you very much. Now, we have seen the extensions of these discussions along those lines, which clearly show that the externalities of the Sahel may be more crucial than we have ever reckoned with. And Nigeria must also be prepared along these lines. These things are being highlighted in the manner of early warning signals so that these things can be tracked and taken seriously. I don't know if Professor Cyril Obi is here with us.
Sorry, sir. Cyril Obi is unable to make it. He's traveling. He's unable to make it, sir.
Right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So
that's an engagement.
That gives us some little more time for robust engagement with what we have heard. I think that our two speakers, have touched on several issues. Professor Osaghae, sir.
Sorry.
Yes, thank you, sir. Our two speakers have touched on several issues. They have given us enough to chew upon. So I think it is now the open session. And what I'm going to do is to invite people as you raise your hands. I can see Professor Osaghae with a yellow card. I don't know if yellow means he wants to go first, but he has raised his hand. So Professor Osaghae, thank you, sir. It's your turn.
All right. Okay, thank you.
The chairperson.
Yes.
Can I suggest we go by the order in which the names appeared? General Francis Bazin was the first to raise his hand.
Oh no, I was not seeing that.
Yeah, I can see because of the road. So followed by Olukoju, then Professor Osaghae, and then Alexander Subar. Maybe you should go
so in that order. Is that in that order? Fantastic. Yes.
General Francis Bazin. I think he has unmuted himself. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead, please.
I should go ahead.
No, Professor Olukoju.
Oh, okay.
So Olukoju there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, Professor Olukoju. Yes. You have the floor now.
So I want to thank our presenters for their brilliant presentations. But my comments will be somewhat how to put it now? not quite coordinated, but let me just mention them. The first question I want to ask the two presenters is, I have an idea, but I think they can enlighten me further. What accounts for the Ghanaian exceptionalism? Because Ghana is very close to Burkina Faso, yet there are no attacks taking place there. So what's happening? Are there things we can learn from the Ghanaian example? The second question is the allusion made to the Owo incident. And my question would be, are we, by we, I'm talking of those in the security system, are we reconfiguring our strategy to shift our base down to Kogi and Kwara so that we can stem the tide before it is too late? My third point is about the issues raised by the general, leadership deficit, social grievances, and all that. But in addition to that, are we considering the fact that some people are complicit? Some communities are host communities to these terrorists on account of what I call gullible complicity. There are sleeper cells among them, and there are saboteurs even in the armed and military forces, security forces. My other point is about failure of intelligence. Why are they always a step ahead of us? Why my final point is about weaponry. When we acquired those Tucano jets and we haven't seen them, why didn't we invest in drones? Drones are, I think, the weapon of the moment. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Professor Lukoju. We will take Professor Sogolo and then we'll ask the presenters to respond to this first round of questions. Professor Sogolo, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. My question is directed to General Dambazzau on the point he made about France, USA, and EU pulling off the area. And in relation to the operations of these insurgents, are there no eternal sponsors? In other words, are there financiers of the activities of these insurgents within Nigeria, for instance? If there are, what are we doing to prevent that from happening? At least, are we monitoring the financiers, the big names behind the insurgents? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that this is something that you are directing at the intelligence agencies. I don't know if our presenters, would have the responses that you are expecting to get, but that's fine.
The general might have.
Yeah, we never know. But let's begin then with Professor Albert. Professor Albert, you would have the floor for a few minutes, and then we would invite the general. Professor Albert, please.
Well, I think the first point I will make is to really thank General Dambazzau. General Dambazzau is a scholar. He has a PhD in criminology, and he probably got his PhD before mine. And so anytime I call him a professor, sometimes he will say no, but he has published extensively, like many of us in this community. Now, I'm thanking him because what he has done is to merge his academic and military, what we now call knowledges. It's not just speaking only as a scholar, but it's helping us to put meanings to the things we see on the surface. Because you see, what the layman sees on the surface is, in some cases, is totally different from what is happening. And so you need people, insiders, who understand this system. And I thank Professor Osaghae, who is also saying that there are certain things that we're not able to say on this platform. We can only say things that can be defended after this engagement. 2 years ago, I was in a meeting with the Ghanaian Minister of National Security. And the question that Professor Olukoju asked now was asked, Minister, sir, why is Ghana not experiencing what other countries are experiencing? And he said, I don't know. He said, but we are doing a lot to prevent the problem from getting to us. And I think that's a very diplomatic answer to that type of this thing. And then when they turn to us sometimes and say, you Nigerians, why are all the bad things in this world on terrorism with you? Sometimes we say we don't know because our political leaders are better informed as to why all the problems are with us. I don't think it's a question of geography alone. I don't think it's a question of the resources we have. I think it is more of politics than management of security. I think in Nigeria, we place politics above scientific management of problems. Terrorism all over the world is a criminal act. And when people are dealing with terrorism, they deal with it dispassionately. A criminal is a criminal. You treat a criminal like a criminal. But in Nigeria, we cherry pick. You know, so we may not be able to provide all the answers that that could be provided here. But the minister was asked that question in Senegal, and I think he gave an answer that was sufficient for that assembly. Now, the terrorist attack on Owo, what we know of it in the public, I mean, what people say is totally different from the insider understanding of what happened. It was an experiment that probably failed, and probably that is why we're having another experiment. If you cannot come in through Owo, which will lead you straight to Niger Delta or lead you straight to Lagos, can you come in through Kwara, which will lead you not only into the southwest, but also into Benin Republic? Now, and I think the answer I've provided there will speak to the question asked by one of us, that why are these people always ahead of us? Why are they always ahead of us? Because most of the time when they strike, and you, a student of strategic communication, you listen to our leaders, then you know that probably these people are ahead of our leaders. When they strike, a security meeting is called by the president, and when they finish the meeting, one of the people that attended the meeting will come out and say, now we are going to use technology. And then the question you ask yourself, are you just realizing that fighting terrorism will work without the use of technology? And then they say, now we are going to rejig our security architecture. Do you reject your security architecture only when the enemy has attacked? So clearly, to outsiders, the terrorists are ahead of the Nigerian state. Several books, articles have been written on it to say that until these people strike and teach us lessons, we may not, or we are not in positions to decide what to do. So let me just stop there and allow Professor General Dambazzau to come in.
Thank you very much. May I please appeal to all of our participants to please maintain the decorum of keeping ourselves muted as much as possible so that we can all participate effectively and listen to the presenters. Before I invite General Dambazzau, who in his own right is an accomplished scholar, gone beyond criminology to even the debates about peace and security studies and so on.
Please, can I give some help to my brother, General Damba, before he comes back?
we will invite you to do so. Please be patient with us. You know, the question raised by Professor Olukoju on exceptionalism is a question that, you know, can be answered from the perspective of the differentiation between the most similar systems approach and the most different systems approach. If you take Ghana and Nigeria, you can maximize the similarities that we share. This is the logic of the most similar systems approach. And we have a lot in common, from colonial history to and so on and so on. Now, what are the striking differences between Nigeria and Ghana? Is there any one? So as we go on, if you can identify any strong difference, maybe religious sensitivities, maybe the politicization of religion and so on, that in itself becomes an important explanation for what has been described as the Ghanaian exceptionalism. Now, I see that an intervention, but just before you support Dambazzau, let Dambazzau speak, and then you can come in afterwards, Professor. General Dambazzau, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I didn't hear the question actually because I was offline throughout the time. The only word I had was Ghana, but from the answer response by Professor Isaac Albert, I can just guess. So it is on that basis I'm going to respond, but I didn't hear the actual question. But I think it has to do as to why Ghana is not as vulnerable as Nigeria. I don't know if I get it right.
You're right, sir.
Yes, Ghana knows that it is vulnerable. And why do I say so? This is why it called for the Accra Initiative. And the Accra Initiative was one is a preemptive measure with countries that are bordering Ghana in particular, to be able to look at the security environment in order to know what actions to take and prevent easy movement of these groups into that part of ECOWAS sub-region. So this is one. But it is not that Ghana is not, and I think Ghana has its own experience of some attacks, but not as much as we have in Nigeria. But I told you why Nigeria is attractive. And those reasons are not there in Ghana. Nigeria is the most strategic country within ECOWAS sub-region. And I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that it is the strongest point of ECOWAS. ECOWAS depends largely on funding by Nigeria. And my colleague here, General Francis, who was the ECOWAS Commission's Commissioner for Peace and Security, will be able to attest to that because he has the experience in this sub-region. But I think Nigeria is more attractive for the reasons I have given. It has extensive border with Niger. We have quite a lot of instability that will attract arms merchants, drug traffickers. Nigeria is a rich country. We have, extensive amount of solid minerals that can be illegally exploited, and we are strong both multiculturally and multi-religiously. That even though that should be our strength, we have also by ourselves defined that as our weaknesses. and people are ready to exploit that. So these are reasons that you can find as to why Nigeria will be more attractive to insurgents than this. So there's also need for us to do a lot to counter that. And I believe that I want to say that this current situation we have, and I've even said this in 2014, I remember that we shouldn't stop looking at this insecurity situation as a Nigeria's problem. It is not. This security situation is a regional problem, and it must be addressed regionally, if not continentally, whereby we should have the African Union fully involved. But it's a regional problem. It is no longer an issue of one single country. If we look at that from that perspective, then we continue to have this problem. And this is why it is important that we should link that gap between ECOWAS and this Sahel, these other alliances. Even if it is on security basis, we must be able to do that. Because if we don't attack this regionally, then I am afraid it's not going to end so soon. Thank you very much.
But I asked a question, General, which Albert thought that he might be able to answer. And the question has to do with the financiers of the insurgents, whether eternally in Nigeria there's interest shown for trying to resolve that particular challenge of those who finance insurgents, who finance terrorists internally in Nigeria, rather than just talk about the border challenges and so forth. I don't know whether you, in your experience, professionally or politically, have something to say about that.
Well, I want to say that financing any project like that, like insurgency, terrorism, I think there could be different sources. It's not going to be a one-source finance. And I've mentioned that if even the U.S. Congress came out some time back to say that, and the current government of the U.S. to say that United States Agency for International Development, USAID, finances some of these groups. How far that has been, but for the government or for the Congress to come out to say that, of course, this is a very, very strong statement. We've had in the past whereby the CIA organized and sponsored such groups. It's been there on the table that is behind the formation of the Taliban, ISIS, and so on and so forth. That too is part of it. Talking internally, yeah, it's possible to have people either directly or indirectly to sponsor or to give, support for the terrorists. For instance, they could have within communities have agents who would giving them real-time information on activities of our security forces. That itself is an aspect of financing, quote and unquote, not in terms of money. And also they engage in illegal activities to make money in order to buy arms, and so on and so forth. So there are so many sources of finances which I think we should look at, but we shouldn't just narrow ourselves to one. Probably the security, the intelligence community will be able to know details. I'm not part of that. Mine is operational in terms of fighting, but the details of such who and who actually finance terrorism is there. And I also want to make this point that specifically with Zamfara, for instance, and even other states, some of these non-state actors were players, supporters of politicians during elections. But post-elections and during that period, some of these politicians buy them arms, buy them drugs in order to protect, quote and unquote, their interests. After the elections, what happens is a different thing. So if you are looking at that, there's no clear line as to say so-so person is able to, or so-so group are able to finance and send money to terrorists. It's a multi-factor issue. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, General Dambazzau. Professor Osaghae, I know he's on the road. I don't know whether he's been cut off. We have about 6 more people whose hands are up. But before we take them, I'd like to take questions on the platform so that we don't overlook those questions.
That's it.
Professor Osaghae, just a moment. I'll be through now. One, Olushola Ogudipe, I said his question is for General Dambazzau. That is how our country, Nigeria, will be more protected from these insurgents who almost paralyzed activities in the northern parts of the country. I guess it wasn't properly crafted. Professor Kenala is asking the question, what is the role of internal radical Islamic clerics and scholars in promoting radical Islamic ideology and doctrines? Christian Oduemelam is asking, my question is to General Dambazzau. The role of counter-terrorism communication is increasingly occupying important space in the fight against terrorism within the non-kinetic approach. To what extent is Nigeria leveraging this? Christian Oduemelam, yeah, that's the last major question. So you can take those into consideration as we call the next person, Professor Adebola Ekanla, followed by Professor BSc Obiafuna and I Chief Sir Ifeanyi. I can't see the full name, but I'm sure the person knows himself. Professor Adebola Ekanla, Professor Osaghae, the floor is, you are back in command, please. Professor Ekanla.
No, thank you. The order is already well laid. So.
Thank you so very much, sir. First, I would want to thank Professor Albert and General Dambazzau for the contributions they've made so far. Now I have a clearer and a better understanding of the dynamics at play as far as the security challenge in the Sahel and, of course, in Nigeria is concerned. I want to direct my question to Professor Albert specifically. And I wonder if he would agree with me that certainly there are a lot of dynamics at play as far as the security threat in the Sahel region and in Nigeria is concerned. We have clear political, socioeconomic, and military dynamics at play. And my thinking, and I don't know if you will agree with that, is that we need to come up with a holistic approach to addressing these dynamics so as to effectively mitigate the effect of these threats in Nigeria and, of course, in the Sahel. And of course, I take note of what General Dambazzau said, that we need to look at this problem, not just from the perspective of any given country, but from a regional perspective. But of course, I even think that it's an African problem, and that we need to have effective political, socioeconomic, and then military approaches targeting this threat. And I will also want to say that with specific reference to Nigeria, it seems as if for some reasons, which I hope Professor Albert will be able to throw some light, some more light on, that makes Nigeria more vulnerable than other countries in the region. So I want Professor Albert to respond to these issues. Thank you.
Reverend Father Back will be a funeral.
Thank you very much. The presenters, mine is very simple. In as much as I know that terrorist groups would belong to criminal group, and criminality is criminality. But I would plead with Professor Albert to please tell me more of what you would consider the primary interest, or if you like, the motivating factors of these terrorist groups that is pushing them to continue to move along these areas that they have just mentioned, from Sahel to Nigeria. What would you consider the primary interests, the motivating factors pushing them into these activities? Thank you.
If I correct.
You're very correct, sir. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be in your midst today. I have listened to the discussion or presentation by the two speakers, which were very interesting. In as much as I agree that this issue is that of not only regional, but also within the African Union. Is it possible, looking at it from the Nigerian perspective, can we create something like walls that can minimize entry from the Sahel to Nigeria? Example of this is when Pakistan and Afghanistan had their problem. The problem reduced when Pakistan built a wall. I'm not a fan of denying people social interaction, but if this will help us minimize the insecurity in our country, is this doable? I think this question might go to my boss, General Dambazzau. Thank you all.
Dr. Nanagan Adeshola Peters.
Good evening, all. And I want to appreciate the presenters. My name is Dr. Nanagan. I'm a criminologist from Capital City University, Kano. If we go through our borders, I think we will see practical examples of some of the issues. I remembered some time ago we were going through the borders on criminology research work. Through the Seme border, Togo, you move further to Ivory Coast before you get to Ghana. All these borders are so loose, are so porous, that I took time to interview one of the security personnel in the border, that's Togo border. I asked him a question. I just said, "Officer, you are well done. I appreciate the work you people are doing. But what of those people just some few meters away from where they are checking us? Some people were passing through the same border to the other country." I asked a question. I said, "Why are these people moving through that place and you are not stopping them?" The question, the answer he gave me was, "We are short of manpower." You see, manpower is another factor to security issues. So through those borders, you can see how people are passing through without people stopping them because of the porosity of the borders. When we got to Ghana, we asked the National Security Advisor to the Ghana president on why is it that Nigerians carry weapons into other countries. The answer the man gave was that these weapons come from Burkina Faso to Nigeria and so on like that. It was after 3 months, we came back, a man was arrested with a trailer load of AK-47, that he has been doing this business for more than 15 years. You can imagine. So the borders are so porous that weapons can be coming in anytime. Thank you.
We are running short of time. By our clock, we're actually 9 minutes left, and we still have at least 4 hands up. So can I quietly request that those asking questions should please make it short and sharp so that the speakers can respond. Also, we have some comments in the chat room, which we'd like to read out before they respond. So let's quickly make it short. Professor Osaghae Adekoya, please unmute yourself. Professor Osaghae Adekoya.
Thank you. My question is very simple. What exactly is the ultimate goal of the terrorists who are pushing from the Sahel region southward to ECOWAS coastal states? Is it just economic plunder or establishment of Islamic states? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jonathan Miangwa. Jonathan Miangwa, yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof, for giving me this opportunity. I'm Dr. Jonathan Miangwa from the Department of Political Science, University of Maiduguri. I want to thank the presenters for the incisive discussion tonight. I have learned a lot, and this is also an area of interest for me as a scholar. I have followed Lieutenant General Dambazzau closely from his discussion. I came to also realize that he has established the context in which the insurgent operates, which a fertile ground has been created in Nigeria. He has actually looked at those contexts by looking at the porous nature of our borders, by looking at the heterogeneous culture, as well as our religious affinity across the West African region, particularly in the Lake Chad region, which has made it very fertile for these terrorists to actually have ground to operate in Nigeria. Now, one of the concern I always express is that the Nigerian government has not been able to criminalize what we call bandits. I think we have not been able to actually criminalize banditry in Nigeria, because if you look at most of the acts of banditry is the act of terrorism. It's like we try to give them a softer name, yet their activities continue to increase, their activities continue to escalate, covering northeast, north central, and northwest. I think the Nigerian government needs to criminalize banditry, just like they proscribed Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations in Nigeria. There should be a regulatory framework to actually criminalize the act of banditry in Nigeria, which makes it difficult for them to operate. And then because there is interconnectivity between the terrorists within the northwest region, the northeast region, and then the north central region. There is this fluidity of connectivity between these groups. And in terms of communications, in terms of interactions, in terms of movement. I think the Nigerian government need to do something very urgent about this. And then the other aspect I also want to talk about is the poor management of our internal security. We have not actually come out with a good strategy to manage the internal security in Nigeria. We have a weakened intelligence framework, which has not been very, very operative. And that is why the terrorist group, the insurgent group kept emboldening, they kept enlarging, moving from one region to the other. I think we need to really work on our internal intelligence network so that we can safeguard our nation. Finally, 2027 is just at the corner. And if the Nigerian states has failed to address squarely the security porosity, I think we are likely going to have a larger magnitude of this crisis to contend with. This is just my submission tonight. Thank you very much for listening.
Professor Osaghae? Okay. Dr. Benjamin B. and Said Owonikoko, in that order, and we'll close the contributions. Dr. Benjamin B.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening. I most especially, first and foremost, thank Professor Albert and Lieutenant Abdulrahman Dambazzau for their contributions. I sincerely want to run fast on it, on the fact that we have examined the security situations of the Sahel region and how it affects Nigeria security without considering the economic factor and the situation on the growth within the Sahel region. My question is, would it be correct to state that the narrative of this continuous terrorist situation in the Sahel region is an act of sponsorship from some international organizations for certain interests or certain general interests vested within the Sahel region? And to what extent are the Africans or this Sahel region or the West African region, the ECOWAS, as it were, what are they doing, considering the fact that we have got some information from America as have been supported or stated by Abdulrahman Dambazzau? What are Africans doing in consideration that this might be an internationally organized crime against Africa? And instead of laying the blame on certain countries and certain issues, what are we doing as Africa to face this issue headlong? Thank you very much.
Finally, Said Owonikoko, Dr. Professor Chief.
Before finally, sir, my president, FP has been raising his hand for a very long time.
His hand was off, but it's no longer online. I've been checking to see whether it's still online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've checked.
Please, I raised my hand since many times and nobody give me the floor. I'm General Francis Beazen, former commissioner.
Oh, we saw your hand. Yeah, General Beazen, please, you're actually ahead. Please speak now. We'll get Dr. Owonikoko to please just hold on.
I know. I would like to thank you, everybody in this platform, and my brother and friend, General Dambazzau, is there. And I'm okay with many contributions coming from Professor and so on. Thank you for Nigeria Academic of Letters to arise the problem of terrorism in West Africa. I was the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security from 2018 to 2022. And I believe that terrorism is not the problem of only one country. And General Dambazzau talked to you about the porosity of our border. And from all the experience of our country in terrorism, we do something very fundamental. That is a plan strategy, a plan action for combat terrorism in West Africa. And I could tell you that the plan and the activity and action in that plan were recommended by the meeting of the Chief of Defense Staff, the Head of Security Intelligence Service, and civilian stakeholders, maybe traditional leaders, religious leaders, civil society, and so on. And that plan has been adopted by the head of state. Adopted by the head of state in 8 priority areas. First of all, pooling of effort and coordination of counter-terrorism initiative. You talk about the initiative of Accra. Initiative of Accra is inside. Secondly, we have to do effective and direct information and intelligence sharing among member state security service. Thirdly, we have to train and equipping public officers involved in counter-terrorism. Fourth, strengthening border management and security control at land, air, sea, and rivers. 5, strengthening the control of armed and dual-use goods. 6, countering terrorism financing we have to combat. 7, promoting communication, intercommunal dialogue, and preventing violence, extremism. 8, finally, action plan and resources mobilization to find counter-terrorism within ECOWAS. I can tell you after that adoption of that plan, we need only, I'm telling you, we need only $2 billion, $300 million US to implement all the action and the activity on the ground. I can tell you from the day we adopted that plan, no money to implement. And know that nobody, no country can combat terrorism himself. Even the alliance of Sahel states, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, because all those countries have border with the other country of ECOWAS. The thing we have to do is to know how we can mobilize the $2 billion, 300 US dollar. And I'm telling you, I was in Washington in a meeting. And I told them, you try to finance Ukraine war with Russia for $200 billion, and you cannot help us to combat terrorism in our country. And all the minerals in the world are coming from Africa. They told me that they will see. After that, Trump will come back and everything Qatar. I believe that we have to be together in Africa, because to combat terrorism, we need aerian cover. I'm telling this in front of General Dambazzau. And we have some army in Africa that have the equipment to cover our troops when they are combating on the ground. Because when you are in a plane crossing our states from some distance, you can see what is happening on the ground. And I remember when I was in Mali before the coup d'etat, it's French people who had the responsibility of covering the troop on the ground. what they don't do anything for us. If I see the panorama of our army, we can do the job. We can do the job, but we have to be together, frankly, together, without hypocrisy. That is my small contribution I would like to put on your debate. And I congratulate you for that initiative. I believe that my English is not so good. I give you what I can, and I thank you very much. I'm from Benin Republic, near Nigeria, and we have about 800 kilometers border together, porous borders. And today, my country, Benin, also my country, Nigeria, are very improved with the terrorism action on the field. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, General. Yes, we could properly understand your contributions. So, and actually, I'm envious that I could speak English better than I can speak French. So, Saido Nikoko, your comments, then we'll invite the speakers to respond, and then we'll take the comments in the chat room, and then we'll try to close the session. We have gone past our time, but it's been a very fruitful time. Saido Nikoko, please go ahead. Dr. Chief, Professor Nikoko, your hand is still up. Okay. Saido Nikoko, are you still speaking? Okay. The chairperson, please.
Can you hear?
Okay. Saido Nikoko, your hand is still up. You want to speak?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay, okay. So I would like to start by thanking Professor Albert for the I don't know whether to call it a lecture, but I got a lot of new information, and also to thank Professor Dambazzau. I just want to ask this question, sir. The Sahel that we talk about is a region that has a lot of operations, military operations going on. General Dambazzau has spoken about some of them, the Multinational Joint Task Force, the G5 of the Litakoguma Association, Operation Bakani that is also winding down now, and a lot of others. But scholars and some people have also said that part of the problem in the Sahel, why security is plummeting in the Sahel, is that there are too many military operations going on uncoordinated. And people have tagged this, what they call security logjam theory, to say part of the problem is that there is security logjam in the Sahel that is not, promoting security, but rather, contributing to insecurity. I want to ask, to what extent does Professor Albert and General Dambazzau believe that this is the case in the context of the Sahel, sir? This is my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last speaker, I don't know the title, Saido Nikoko. Before we call on the speakers to respond, let me quickly run through the comments in the chat room. The first is from Femi Olufumilade. With the recruitment of 130,000 forest guards as planned by the Tinubu administration, is there a solution to the onslaught of terrorist forces towards Nigeria, or are we to look at border guards instead? From Professor Jide Akonji, is there a link between insurgencies and banditry? Both are conceptually different, but it seems there could be some connections. From Professor Nkechi Christopher, one, are security issues in Nigeria really the same as those in the Sahel? Two, terrorists are moving have moved into the hinterland, forests unhindered. Meanwhile, the military just said in Benue that it has not been given the mandate to tackle the axemen. 3, if we really want to fight insurgency, why are the people not allowed to defend themselves? They are prevented from carrying arms. 4, Nigeria is in the position to tackle much of the terrorism in the region and at least spearheaded. Rather, it has been dancing around the crisis. From Ambassador Segun Gunyewo, please, what role can Spiritism play in all of this? And Professor Emerita Omofolabaja Eshoyinka, I take it that the Ghana initiative means that some regional discussions are taking place to combat these terrorist activities. However, how effective are these conversations? What monies are being put behind these efforts by all countries affected? Importantly, what efforts are being made to rebuild ECOWAS or perhaps create a security organization equivalent to ECOWAS? Francophone countries that have cut ties with France have simply exchanged France with Russia. Why can't we build our own power? From Professor Gbemisola Adeoti. Question, why do we need to give amnesty to bandits and terrorists who have had their hands stained, obviously, with blood? Professor Rotimi Badejo, shouldn't you pay attention to social re-engineering through education? If only our leaders are able to get it right, they will show us the way forward. From Dr. Joshua Olusegun, that's from the NIA. In all of these vital discussions, sir, we need to talk on geopolitics too. It's affecting us too. From Professor Femi Ayoade, thanks, Professor Albert. Thanks, General Dambazzau. Lots of information. Thank you, General Ben Azin, for your insight. I now hand over to either the chairperson has left the platform because I know it's on the road. Maybe it has been cut off. But let's have the responses from General Dambazzau and Professor Albert. I don't know who wants to go first. General Dambazzau, Professor Albert, who wants to go first between the two of you?
Can I go first because I'm about to leave for prayers?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Professor Albert.
Yes, sir.
Professor Albert.
Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
There are so many questions being asked here. Some of them, I think, we have already talked about them. But let me just state this fact. Let me start by Chief Ogbonna about building a wall. I don't know from where to where that wall should be built. Is it a wall for the whole of the Sahel to demarcate sub-Saharan Africa and the Sahel region? Or from, from where to where? Or are you limiting it to Nigeria or what? Because Nigeria borders 3 countries from the north, from the west, from the east. So that's not clear. But let me say that I think the strongest border is in partnership. Is the strongest border, in my opinion, not physical wall border, but it's in partnership. If you want to build a wall along the borders, how high will be the wall? If you don't have partnership with the other side, strong partnership with the other side. So I think the strongest wall, you can have is against such cross-border activities. It's in partnership with neighboring countries. That is one. And secondly, that partnership should be supported by deployment of technology, modern technology, that will be able to monitor our borders. But that itself is not enough. Without having the capability to be able to respond to emergencies, Because if you are able to monitor well and you don't have the capacity to respond, then that monitoring, what we're talking about intelligence, means nothing because you cannot respond to it. So these are the things I think we should invest in. We should invest in ensuring that we have strong partnership, whether bilateral or multilateral. We should invest in technology for monitoring. And also we should invest in making sure that we enhance the capacity of security forces to respond in real time. That I think we should look at. But also the issue of border has some implications. Yeah, what do you do with the idea of regional integration? The ECOWAS protocol on free movement and so on. Are you going to withdraw from that? What are you going to do about that? Because don't forget the fact that for us, for instance, for Nigeria, yes, we have the other negative aspect because you have people who will come in, particularly pastoralists who come in from other countries into Nigeria. Some of them are committing some of this havoc. But at the same time, we have lots of Nigerians moving across the other states on businesses and so on. Of course, a few of them commit crimes here and there, but do we kill the issue of this regional integration and facilitation of trade among the ECOWAS members? That is a question that I think I will leave to this team, but I'm trying to bring out the implications of building walls across borders. Then I also want to, somebody mentioned about issue of poor management of internal security. I think it's Dr. Mayangwa, and criminalization of banditry. Banditry is, everybody knows that the killing of people, the abducting of people, the raping of women, the destroying of property, communities, is nothing less than criminal. Beyond criminality, it involves terror. It's terror, it's terrorism. Everybody knows that. And the issue of, but the difference I want to tell you between these bandits and probably a group like IPOP or a group like Boko Haram. Boko Haram has a clear intention of acquiring state territory out of Nigerian state, just like IPOP. And also in doing that, they involve acts of terror in it. And they are a group with known leadership. But it's different from what you will have of the bandits. So it's going to have a different approach. Because one, the bandits are, gangs, group of gangs. You cannot identify one person as head of bandits in Nigeria. No, there's nothing like that. In fact, they fight even among themselves. So we need to understand that. But in terms of criminalization, everybody knows that all their acts are criminal. Then poor management of internal security. Yes, I agree. We have weak policing institutions. Law enforcement institutions are weak. Are weak for reasons most of us know. I'm talking of Nigeria now, specific. Most of us know why. One is that they lack training. Professionalism is absolutely almost zero. They lack training. They lack adequate funding. They don't have enough manpower. They don't have adequate equipment. There is corruption. And also there is misuse of the police and the security forces, DSS in particular, because they are being used to protect private individuals mostly. And secondly is that there is no coordination, there is no cooperation, there is no collaboration effectively among themselves. Why? Because you find that most governments, and this is almost throughout our history, focus on regime security rather than national security. So much so that every government, every president wants, the first thing is to how does the government protect itself as against how does the government protect the nation. So this is issue of regime security is reason why they do not collaborate. So you find that every security head is rushing to go and submit a report to the president. So by the time the president gathers all that, so the issue of collaboration becomes nil. So how do you do that? I think is a subject that needs to be discussed extensively. And this is why too that intelligence that's supposed to be in real time sometimes doesn't come in real time. And while this is going on, the military is overstretched. The military is not meant for internal security. The military is clearly defined their role in the Constitution, the protection of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country, nothing else. But today, we find the military at checkpoints. We find the military involved in routine policing. We find the military almost everywhere. And the strength of the military, I tell you, you'll be shocked. The whole of the armed forces, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, the total strength is less than 250,000. So you are using that force to fight everywhere. It's not possible. So I think there is need for us to, I'm talking of Nigeria now, to be able to strengthen the Nigerian police to maintain law and order. As a matter of fact, all the law enforcement agencies, the immigration, the police, and so on and so forth.
Hey, I guess the network is acting up for General Dambazzau, but I'm sure he's reached almost the end of the points he wanted to make. Professor Albert?
Yes, I just felt that if General Dambazzau is still online, probably we want to the president should thank him because he is not supposed to be available for this meeting, but he created the time for us. So we need to appreciate him if he's still there.
Yeah, he has, I think,
probably has left.
Yeah, he has this, I think he has left. Let me say he's been thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but we'll reach out to him after the meeting.
He has answered almost all the questions that were asked. And I think he answered them better than I could have, because he was not only just responding to the questions academically, but he fed into his answers his experience as a former chief of army staff, as a minister of the interior, and so on. So I really want to thank him for the answers. But yesterday, when the BBC correspondent that interviewed me yesterday was engaging me, one of the questions she asked is this motivation for terrorism in the Sahel and West Africa. Why are they so interested? And I think the answer that one could provide here, listening to General Dambazzau and all of us, is that we are dealing with a multi-dimensional problems. And yeah, if I have to go back to the classroom, to my classroom, I will cite what is called greed and grievance theory. Grievance theory is saying that when you find people taking up arms, whether as insurgents or terrorists, they have reasons. And that if you fail to recognize the reasons why they are doing it, they might get to the level where greed will creep in. And therefore, they will engage in a number of activities that are self-serving. And I think that is what we're witnessing across the Sahel corridor. And that is what we're witnessing in Nigeria. You will recall that Professor Tar gave us a lecture here in which he said the Boko Haram crisis is no longer ideological, but it is now a business. And I think that is what we discovered in our British academy research across the West African sub-region. You know, these people collecting taxes from villagers and so on, they are no longer doing it for God. They want to raise money to be as big as whatever they want to be. So we have to take into consideration the fact that, yes, there is the ideological aspect, there is the economic aspect, and there is the political aspect. And that is why I believe very sincerely that the ballooning security problems in Nigeria cannot actually be explained using the ideological and economic lenses alone. You know, there is politics in it. There are some people behind it. But I think the question we have not been able to answer as a nation is why the federal government has found it very difficult to actually bring these people out. You know, who are these people behind our crisis? Now, the last question I think I would, the last point I will make has to do with the fact that we have so many problems in Nigeria because the Nigerian state is too reluctant to deal with criminals as criminals. We call them different types of names. In fact, even the word banditry or bandit is a euphemism. It's an attempt to just say, let us run away from calling these people criminals. And when you don't call them criminals, then it becomes very difficult to manage them. When you don't call them terrorists, it becomes very difficult to manage them. That is part of the problems that I think we are witnessing as a nation. I had a practical experience on a matter of this nature in the late 1990s, when I had the opportunity of being trained in peacekeeping at the United Nations International Leadership Academy, Amman. We were going around around North Africa and Middle East, and I filled my form to enter Israel from Amman, Jordan. We were in Amman, Jordan. I filled the form. And one of the questions had to do with the name of my grandfather. My grandfather is Ogunkeye, but I grew up hating Ogun, and I decided therefore to use my father's first name, Albert. Now, we crossed the land borders from Jordan to Israel, and the immigration people asked me a number of questions, and I forgot that I emphasized the Ogunkeye thing in the information I provided. They asked me this question 3 times. When I could not answer the question well, they came out and I was handcuffed. So, but this was a United Nations mission. And so the head of the mission had to protest. Crime is crime. You know, so, but that is what we are not able to do in Nigeria. And I think that is why our problems are increasing in Nigeria. We want to protect criminals and at the same time have national security. We want agencies that were established to, ensure national security are now doing the work of regime security. Cybercrime laws, we worked on it. It is to support counterterrorism. But today it is being used to catch journalists and to catch anybody that is not a friend to those in government. So let me stop there. Thank you so much, my president, for giving us this platform. And once again, I really want to thank members of my committee because we debated all these topics very well before we agreed to work on them. And I think this is really very successful. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Professor Albert. You know that you are the moving spirit behind this program, and we really appreciate you as an academy. And I, as president, really appreciate your support for the academy. Well, our time is gone. We are 30 minutes into our last, into the time allowed. And many of our colleagues are supposed to be praying now. So I'd like to close this session. But before we close this session, I'd like to appreciate all of you who have patiently waited online and for the robust contributions, the robust communication out today. I'll be discussing with Professor Albert on how to process some of the decisions, some of the recommendations to the appropriate authorities where necessary. Because we are making contribution, we are making great inputs into the policy process, and there's nothing that is too little to effect peace in the sub-region. I'd like to thank the FP was online, Professor Bangweshe, but he left before we could call him to make his comments. And I'd like to thank all of us who are here, Professor Dejide, Professor Sugulu, and quite a number of others. I can't recall everybody. But please note that your presence is appreciated. Our next session of the dialogue is in 2 weeks' time on the 19th of June. And the session will be taken by Professor Jacob Kende Anyatayo of the University of Ibadan, who is speaking on blind devotion, when faith crosses the line into irrationality. We'll be sharing the meeting details with us in a couple of days. But meanwhile, let me thank you for tonight. I appreciate you for all you have done and wish you the very best for the rest of the evening. Thank you so much. God bless.